Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to the video today. And today I'm going to be talking about Activision Blizzard's Q3 2019 earnings report. What? Warcraft 25. Okay. Whew. Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another video, and today's video I'm going to talk about Activision Blizzard's third quarter 2019 earnings report. A couple of days since then, I've just kind of wanted to take time to step back from the entire situation, and in terms of the company's stock price, I wanted to see how it would perform after the fact. Typically after a quarterly report from a company, you'll have a bunch of news stations, a bunch of equity research analysts reporting on the company, giving their own perspectives and views on how they thought the conference call went with all of the executives. And I think it's good to just glaze over all the headlines after a bit and kind of just generally summarize what you thought the good points were and the bad points were, and then also take a look at the actual like presentation and call notes in general. But so for the purpose of this video, I'm going to give you very basic summaries of what I think are the most important financial points, metrics to look at when looking specifically at Activision Blizzard, and then I'm going to go more in depth into the presentation notes, which you can find on their investor page, and really highlight the parts of the company that I really like the most, which is Blizzard Entertainment, and how I think the company has sort of evolved over time compared to like the previous quarter or 2018, things like that. So yeah, I know that's a lot, but let's just get into this video and let's see what you guys can learn, and hopefully I can bring you some value through this financial oriented type video. So let's get into it. Okay, so before diving deep into the presentation notes of Activision Blizzard's Q3 earnings, I want to summarize a couple of important terms that you'll see me post in this video, and I think it'll be easier for you guys to understand what I'm talking about if you don't already know what they are already before actually diving into it. So the first one I'll talk about is GAAP, G-A-A-P. That's how I just pronounce it, and it stands for Generally Accepted Accounting Principles. And so this is essentially like the tried and true method of accounting when a company is going to report its quarterly earnings or any kind of earnings in general. It'll use this specific accounting principles, which factors in a lot of different things, but basically what you need to know, it essentially reports the earnings of a company, how well they did, the profits, and also includes any depreciation factors. So any things along the way where they might have had to, pay for an expense here, whether it was a big lump sum expense they had along the way, all of that will be factored into the GAAP report. And so you'll see GAAP revenue, EPS, GAAP, and yeah, so this can be broken up or shown in a lot of different contexts. So yeah, we have GAAP. Okay, so now we have non-GAAP, and reasons why a company may want to provide non-GAAP measures is because, let's say over a quarter or something, a company bought a big facility for $100 million, and they paid that over time through interest, and that for that one big expense during the quarter, that will most likely drag down its overall revenue, and for better or worse, just make the company look like it was performing way worse than it did if you were to just exclude that expense. So non-GAAP is basically excluding what a company might think as some form of like capital depreciation over time, interest, taxes, which might take away from the picture of their performance and how well they actually performed over a certain amount of time. Basically, to sum that up, non-GAAP performance will typically be higher than GAAP, just because it doesn't account for depreciation. Okay, so next we have EPS, or earnings per share. And this is essentially a quick way you can look at a company and look at this stat and see their performance. And the way this is calculated is just by taking the net income. So basically all the income that the company makes minus any expenses divided by the outstanding number of shares it has in the marketplace. And this will give you a number. And that number essentially is a performance indicator for investors and management in general to look at their company and see how well they're doing in comparison to competitors. So EPS is just another factor of looking at how well a company is doing in terms of its profits, how much a company essentially makes for each one of its shares it has out in the marketplace that you can buy. Then in terms of Activision Blizzard, in general, you'll see monthly active user, or MAU. This is an important factor, I think, or indicator to look at, because it essentially just tells us how many subscribers are playing their games over a given period of time. Okay, so now that we have all those terms kind of generally summarized, let's get into more of the specifics, and I'll start showing some slides here of the actual concrete financials. Okay, so in terms of financial results, GAAP revenue came ahead with $1.28 billion, EPS was 26 cents, and net bookings, basically the amount of digital and physical product they sold, came out at 1.21 billion. And so you can see just across the board, the guidance was estimated results as to what Activision Blizzard was estimated to come out with from like the street and everything like that, and based on just their own prior expectations, and they came out ahead this quarter, so this was a big one for them. One of the main reasons why Activision had such a great quarter was because of a few of these key highlighted features that you can see here. Was because they had the release of Call of Duty Mobile, which came out early October, as well as Call of Duty Modern Warfare, which also came out in October. They had tons of users in those regards and tons of sales. And then World of Warcraft Classic, which came out in late August, I believe August 26th, and it had the most increase in subscribers over the 15 years of World of Warcraft. So all of these in combination just made for a really, really good quarter in terms of financials for the company. So in terms of the actual business units, we're going to be just doing a quick dive into each business unit, starting with Activision. It came out at 36 million monthly active users, so that means there were 36 million users, players playing their games over this quarter. And like I said earlier, a lot of the main factors to why Activision Blizzard has done so well this quarter was because of Call of Duty Mobile, which you can see here had 100 million downloads in the first month. So in October, when it came out last month, reaching the top mobile app downloads chart in 150 countries and regions. So that's incredible. And then also with Call of Duty Modern Warfare, it had a really good sell-through rate, selling a lot of units of the game as well. And then we're just going to flip to King. I want to say that King is actually the highest grossing in terms of like total revenue. It brings the most money out of all the business units. And I think, I just want to say as a side note, it does get kind of left in the dust just because you have Candy Crush and it's just a mobile game, and it's not as mainstream in my opinion as Activision games and Blizzard Entertainment games, but something to take into consideration. We see it has 247 million monthly active users. It has way more people playing the games, and in terms of being able to make digital sales off of the mobile game, it just has more capabilities to bring in more revenue. So this is kind of one of the big money trains for the company, and I feel like it does get left in the dust, but definitely something to take note of is the amount of money that King brings in. We can see in the bottom portion of the slide, it is on track to exceed 100 million in net bookings in 2019. So it is definitely one of the top grossing video game franchises out there. And then we have Blizzard, my favorite video game company. It had 33 million monthly active users this quarter, and one of the main reasons for Blizzard doing so well this quarter was because of World of Warcraft Classic and the nostalgia and the hype surrounding it. And so that was most likely a big factor for bringing in a lot of the users, as well as there were all these announcements that took place during BlizzCon. So we had the Hearthstone's Descent of Dragons expansion announced, we had Overwatch 2 announced, and the Overwatch League Season 2 has concluded with a sellout crowd of over 11,000 fans at the Philadelphia Wells Fargo Center. And then we also had Diablo 4 announced, so all of BlizzCon. So yeah, basically during the end of this quarter, Blizzard has their BlizzCon convention, which they really take their time to put these games and trailers that we've seen over the past couple of weeks and days together, and it just really is a great way of seeing all the work that the company's done. Right here we can see in this slide the segment results of all the three main business units together. And if we just look at the net revenues together, we can see that King is making the most money out of all of them, 500 million. Then Blizzard makes 394 million, then Activision is making 209 million. Okay, so now we're going to be looking at a comparison result of last year's Q3 in 2018 to now. We're in 2019. We're going to be mainly looking at that GAAP, as I was saying before. So back in 2018, Blizzard in this quarter brought in $1.5 billion, and in this quarter they brought in $1.28 billion. Yeah, that's about a $300 million difference right there. Quickly glancing down at the next thing in bold, EPS, earning per share, like I said earlier, in 2018 it was at 34 cents a share, and now in 2019 it's at 26 cents a share. So we can just off of those two financial results, net revenues and EPS, we can see the difference in how much money the company has been bringing in. And then let's look at the cash flow really quick. So how much cash do they have on hand? If they wanted to buy something, if they want to buy a new company, if they wanted to buy a new facility, how much cash on hand would they have to just be able to make that purchase and use it? So free cash flow, last year they had 217 million. And this year they actually have way more. So this year in 2019, in this quarter, they have 275 million. So that kind of tells me right there that they maybe had a little bit more debt, and the difference in net revenues that we see probably paid off some of that. Having positive cash flow is always a very good sign for a company, even though some financial results may be lacking. That is one of the main things you should pay attention to, is how much cash on hand. If they accrue a lot of debt, if they get into a bad situation, are they continuing to have more cash over time? So that's a really good factor. Okay, and so that covers my just kind of generally quick analysis of the Q3 financial results. And then, so now I'm just going to quickly highlight that usually when earnings reports go on, when they have the call with executives and equity research people asking questions towards the end of the call, there's a lot of up and down movements in the stock price, and that can be a good thing or a bad thing based on how the earnings results go. And in this situation, on November 7th, the day of the earnings report, the company's stock price was about around $56 a share, and closer to today, so today I'm filming this is November 13th, I took a screenshot of yesterday, the stock price went down to about $51, $52. Somebody who doesn't really look into the earnings results too much like we are doing now might just think off the bat like, oh, Activision just had this release, their stock price is going down, so hey, they must be doing poorly and let's just sell the stock. That's one way to think about it. But then we also have a couple of interesting things to look at here. So there's a lot of companies. UBS just announced, I believe either today or the other day, that they're increasing their price objective. So the equity research analysts at that company evaluated Activision Blizzard and were saying, hey, we have this earnings result and we actually think the company is going to be going upwards from the $50-ish range all the way up to $66. So that's a positive factor. Bank of America Merrill Lynch has a price objective of $62 a share, and JP Morgan raised their price objective from $58 to $62 a share as well. So also glancing at some equity research reports can give you way more insight into a company than looking at the news and just seeing some headlines from maybe a journalist who doesn't really know what they're talking about. Now that I've stated all of that, I'm just going to talk about my own opinion, and in no way am I a financial advisor, certified financial planner, anything like that to give you investing advice. These are just my thoughts on my favorite company here. So BlizzCon happened, and every year during BlizzCon we eagerly await to see all the trailers and the new announcements for any of the games that are coming out, and this year we finally had everything that we've been hoping for with Shadowlands, Overwatch 2, Diablo 4, and Hearthstone. And so I think Blizzard is a company that takes their time. They take years and years and years to polish a game. They don't try and just pump out a game just because there's a new trend like a battle royale coming along the way, or like with auto chess that recently happened kind of like last year and into this year, blew up. They took their time. They didn't just make their own auto chess game, but they sort of made a new mode which will be released in a while from now in Hearthstone that'll kind of combat that and go into that front. And so I think when it comes to Activision Blizzard, and specifically if you're talking about Blizzard Entertainment, this is a company that takes a lot of time to really fine-tune their games and make it as good as possible. So I think they're a very, very high quality company, and I think they're undervalued by quite a bit. Barney. If you're interested in learning more about this company in terms of investing in it, or just you're interested in their games, I highly recommend checking out some articles and websites and links I'm going to link down below, and make sure to stay tuned for things that I post about Activision Blizzard, because there's a lot of interesting stuff in their pipeline, and I think you would be a fool to just not pay attention to the company. So yeah, let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you later.